All right. Again, thank you everyone for coming to the session. We're going to go through an hour, I guess 55 minutes now, of building and getting something deployed on the internet. And we're going to go through a process specifically on how I start projects and build with a little bit more design control through that. I personally started using a design tool called Paper. I guess a month and a half ago, and just been blown away with how it has sped up the process, how it has helped me become a better product builder and product designer as I'm going through the process. And so, wanted to just go through the opportunity to share how I've been using it and how it works and kind of the process that I've been working through, so that other people can also benefit from it and see what it is. And so for today. Things we'll use, just giving you a lay of the land of the things we'll use. So there's not any surprises, I guess, along the way. We're going to go through use a terminal. So we're going to be using the terminal to just set up some things, and then we'll be running Claude code inside that terminal. The terminal that I use is called warp.dev. It has two things that I like. It has the ability to have tabs easily, so you have different terminal tabs open at the same time, and then it's just pretty user friendly and easy for beginners or less technical people to be able to do some commands and stuff through that. The agent that we're going to be using is Claude Code. Again, we'll be running that in the terminal. The design canvas I'm using is Paper. That is Paper.Design. The code, we're going to be writing Next.js code, and we're going to be starting with a component library, component system built in through shadcn. So shadcn UI is what we're going to start there. And then infrastructure-wise, we'll be hosting this on Vercel. I'm going to use GitHub to host the code and then kind of push to get that hosted online through that. Just want to give a kind of a little overview of how the general part of this is going to work. We're going to run with Claude Code primarily, and then it's going to both direct what gets designed in the canvas in Paper. Of course, it's like a design tool, like a Figma or any other design tool that you're familiar with, that you can do any type of edits or changes from it that you want. So it's not just you have to dictate and drive it by text and through an agent. Once something's up there, you can move stuff around, you can change all the properties, you can do whatever you would normally do in a design tool. Then Claude Code will then take that information back from Paper, from the design canvas, and then push it into or not push it, but it will then develop a app based on that in the code repository that we'll set up. Again, we'll be using Next.js as part of that for today. The quick steps, I'm going to give you a little walkthrough of what we're going to go through today, and then we're going to get started building because we only have so much time and we got to get stuff built. So first, we're going to create a new code project with Next.js and shadcn UI installed. Then we're going to connect it to GitHub and Vercel so that once we push code changes, it automatically gets deployed on the internet. Then we're going to start Claude Code, initialize it in the code repo. Fourth, we're going to use Claude Code to kind of initialize the design in Paper on the canvas in Paper. And then we're going to use Claude Code to plan and code the actual development, the app in code based on those designs. Finally, we're going to keep iterating. We're not going to get it right at first, totally fine, or we're going to go through a very simple version at first, and then we might expand and add some features on as we go through. And so we're going to keep iterating until we get it right. And then we're going to merge the code and make it live. And that's the run of events for today. We're going to do our best. Not we're going to do our best. We are going to end this at the end of the hour. And so we might have to make some decisions to constrain and not do as much based on how the live demo gods play in our favor today. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, everything works. But we're gonna roll with it. So without further ado, we're going to get started with the building portion of this. Hopefully everyone's ready to go, and we'll go from there. I will ask, again, if you have questions, put them in the chat. I can see them live. I have another magical screen here that has everything, so I can see everything that you're putting in. So if there's anything that comes up, feel free to do it. Tell me to stop. Something's wrong, so forth. Go with it. All right. So we're going to start by again, like I said, starting a project in a code repo with a Next.js project. Next.js is a React JavaScript framework and created by the folks at Vercel. ShadCN is a UI component library that will give the foundation, like you can see, like good buttons and different parts of an app that gives a good foundation. I have found that starting with that gives the foundation of a good design system in a project that you can then layer on top of. And so it doesn't mean that our app's going to look like this. And actually, I hope it doesn't look exactly like this. It's going to look a little bit different, but it gives that foundation that we're going to start with. So in order to do that, you generally just go to here. This is ui.shadcn.com. You go to new project. You can tweak some stuff around here in terms of all these colors and fonts and so forth. I'm not going to change really anything right now. We're going to let it be as it is. Again, like Claude Code is going to change some of the design of this anyway, and so this is just that foundation that's going to be built with. So I'm going to go ahead and either create project down in the left corner, which is behind my body, and so I will press the button that's up here on right? And I'm going to say we're going to do a Next.js project. The base, these are component like foundations that we can start with. It's either Radix UI or base UI. I'm going to choose base UI. My understanding is that it is more actively maintained at this point. So it's a good foundation to start with. And then from there, we get what is called basically a terminal command, a command that I'm going to run in my terminal that will then initialize this project. So I'm going to copy this, and then we're going to go on over. That was the paper. We're going to go to the terminal. So over here on the right is going to be the terminal I'm going to work with. It's going to be able to peek at the design canvas on the left as we're going through it, and then also is going to be the code in a code editor as well. So you'll have the ability to look at that at any point. I have a folder open on the terminal on my computer. I'm going to paste that command in there, and then that's going to then create this code repo in this location on my computer. It's going to ask me what to name it, and that's where we're going to start by saying, what are we building today? I built this on Friday. We're going to build the same thing just because it's something fun and different. It is we're going to make a beat pad where you can press things and it makes sounds, and you can judge me for whether I can make it sound decent or not. But in the end, we're going to make a playable beat pad, which is like you can press a button and it's going to play a kick drum or a snare or sounds and so forth. And so let's name it my beat pad. And it's going to create that project in here. It's thinking, it's going through it. During these moments, I'm going to fill the void of sound with talking. If anyone has any questions, again, feel free to put it in the chat. Yeah, and go from there. And we'll go open anything that side. All right, so we got this project created. I'm going to now move into that folder. So I have it open here, and you can see that I have a code repo set up. It is on the main branch. And then, as I said in the run of events, we're going to first set up a GitHub repo and then connect this to Vercel. So once we actually push code, it's going to go right to the internet. All right, so in order to do that, I've got a code repo here. I'm going to, on GitHub, I'm going to say my beat pad. I'm going to create that. You're welcome to look around that after here. It's going to tell me I need to run this terminal command here, which is, I'm going to add this to the project. Cool, and it's now linked and connected. And then, yeah, why don't we push what's up there already? Which what we have up there is not much of anything, I promise you, and I'll show you what that is. and that's going to push that up. So to show you where we're starting with, before we do any code, I'm going to open up a dev server. That can be done through pnp dev, and I'm going to run that, and then I'm going to open that up. It's going to open up here. So this is what we're starting with. It's just a blank project. All it says is project ready, button, that's it. And so now we're going to get into the fun part of designing something. So I'm going to go back to this little one, terminal stuff, and I'm going to open up Claude Code. So I'm going to type in Claude. I'm going to say, yeah, I trust this. And then before we get started too far, I'm going to also open it up here in my code editor, and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to go to my beatpad and say, yes, I trust this, and then go through here. I can see all the code here and so forth. All right. So now let's get into the design portion. What are we doing? So we're going to go through the process of designing an app. That app is this beatpad. And so I see a question, sorry, where do we start in Warp? If you do want to start in Warp, yeah, it's a new terminal session, I believe. If you want to use another terminal that you're more familiar with as well, feel free to use that as well. All right. So what we're going to do, and this is generally how I start things, is you start with like you would a design project. You would start with kind of a mood board or like an imagery or something that's inspiring the vision of what you're trying to build. And so for this this project, I'm starting with this design inspiration. It's a picture of a, I don't know, 1970s plastic Fisher-Price record player thing, and I'm like, kind of have a little vintage brownish look to it. I'm using some serif fonts to say music tools that move you. That's it. That's all we're going to start with. And then I'm going to kind of basically just say, design me something that uses this as inspiration. You can put more colors, more information, whatever would be a good mood board or a better starting point to go from, but that's what we're going to go with. So in order to do that, I'll make a pause right here. I know that if you don't have the Paper MCP installed, you do have to do this before you get started. And so I'm not going to go through that process today, but it is under the docs. It's Paper.Design, MC/docs, MCP, and you can go through this part. Basically, you run this terminal command first before you open up Claude. And then from there, it will then install the MCP. And how the MCP works with Paper is that it's basically running locally on your computer. It's running based on this desktop app. So you have to have the desktop app open in order for the MCP to work. All right, let's go into this. So again, first stage is we're going to design the beatpad portion. And so I'm going to say, I want to design a beatpad app that is 2 pads across and 4 pads down, based on the design inspo artboard in Paper. And so this is one of the things that like you just need to make sure that you're referencing the word paper in here, both in terms of where you're looking for things and then when you say where you want it to happen. And that's what will trigger Claude Code to know that, hey, I'm not doing any code. I'm going through the process of going through this. All right. And so design, I'm going to say 3 variations of this app in Paper. We're just going to start. We just want to have kind of a starting point to go with. And so it should look at what's in the file. It's kind of getting the information in there. And you can see it's got this little animation saying it's looking at this. It's got this little bot over here saying it's connected and looking at things. And then it's going to go through a process to go through that. So it's going to get some information from the file. It can see what it is. It's describing to you what it is, a warm, nostalgic vibe with a vintage toy, record player, and music tools that move you in young serif font. And then it's going to create some artboards. And so it's going to create, it looks like three artboards, and then it's going to start designing it. And it's going to go through that process of designing these three artboards. And then this is the point where I can change anything from this. I can just choose which one I like most. I can combine multiple things from different ones and so forth. And I'll kind of go through how I might do that and go through that process. But first, we're gonna let it build. And it's using the colors that it saw in the image. It's using this serif font to drive some of the typography and so forth. And then once it goes through the process, I might notice something that needs to change in terms of design or flow or user capability on this side, and then I would then go through the process of changing that. So, we're getting closer to the end of the design, at least the first iteration of this, and then we'll see where we're going to go from there. You can see what Paper is doing. It's kind of writing HTML. That's one of the really nice things that I like about Paper is that it's just rendering HTML and CSS in the canvas, and so it's more of a direct relation to what Claude Code is writing, putting it into that, and then as well, like when you want to get things out of Paper into the code, it's looking at it and looking at HTML and CSS to then more of like a one-to-one relationship. So develops it closer to what you would want to see from it develops it closer to what the design is, which I think is great. All right. And so I think we're getting to the point you can see it's looking at them, it's doing some screenshots, it's saying, hey, does this look right? Does this not look right? It's making some changes. And then eventually it's going to say it's done, and I think it's done. So great. All right. It looks like we got some lingering, like it's still thinking, but I believe it is done thinking, and these are the things. Now, I'm going to choose one of them. I'm going to go with a direction of number V1, a retro toy. I am going to actually, I don't need a BPM mod thing, and I don't need this play button, and I don't even know what that is. I guess it's a waveform to show me it's playing. Like, we're not going to record anything. We're not going to have it actively play it. We're going to actually trigger things ourselves. And so I'm just going to delete that portion of it. I could then, go in here and change spacing, change anything. As you can see, I can change coloring. I can do any of the things I would from a design tool. Because we have limited time today, I'm not going to do too much adjusting and tweaking, but what I would recommend always is to kind of get a direction, look at all the screens and capabilities that you want, and really, really refine what you want, and then use the agent to kind of speed the process in which you want to make the changes you need to make versus having it just taking everything from the agent and do it. And I think that's the part of this that's really cool is that you now have the ability to really tweak with the better tools to manage the design than you'd have then just trying to fight with the agent and say, hey, make this spacing a little bit more and move this here and do that process, which I know is frustrating for me and I assume is frustrating for other people. All right, I'm going to say, I might speed this up a little bit instead of typing. I'm going to talk to it. And so I'm going to dictate this and change. But I'm going to dictate. Hey, I like V1 Retro Troy the best. We need different states here. The user is actually going to upload their own sounds versus having predefined sounds. So can you make some of the pads as if they had sounds already loaded onto it, and some pads that don't have sounds loaded to it, and then would have a call to action to upload a sound. The upload will happen on each pad specifically. All right. And it went through that process and that. And then I'm going to just say, can you design an additional version in paper based on this V1 direction? Cool. Now it's going to go through a process and do that and create some different states and from there. So I believe it's creating a whole new one somewhere. Yes. And so because we're not using these, let's delete them. Let's get it out of here and let's look at what we got going on here for this new version. Now, meanwhile, back in the code, we're not doing anything yet. We haven't done anything. We haven't touched anything. We're just designing in the canvas. It's that portion that we were talking about up here, which is we are just having Claude Code talk to paper, talk to the design canvas. We're going to iterate and get to an inversion of this product that works well for in paper, and then we're going to go through the process of developing it into the code base. So it's developing it. You can see it's coming up with some stuff. It's going to look like now, like the files that have been uploaded. Makes sense. Oh, I forgot that I forgot to say that I deleted this section and it didn't remember. So I kind of remember that it had this little BPM play button at the bottom. So I'm going to tell it that we don't need that. Um, but it's going to look at this on here. Yeah, it's fixing the uneven spacing, looking at things, hopefully updating it as we go through the process. One of the questions I just got from Jeff, great name, Jeff. Manual changes cause drift. Um, yes and no. I think like in this instance, because it already has some of this information loaded in, it's kind of remembering some of that. How I would generally do this is I would get a design set up in here, and then I'm going to actually clear the context so it doesn't remember any of the things that we talked about, and so it's only going to look at the design file to start with, and so it won't have that drift anymore. But it can basically remember that we sort of talked about, and it already kind of went through the design process before, and so because I didn't say I deleted it, it didn't like look at the file and then design from it. It just kind of used what it already had in its memory to go through that, if that makes sense. All right, it came up with a version. This is not quite right in terms of this. And I'm just going to, again, I could manually do this, but let's see. Let's see what's going on. So we have S, S. I think because of some of the naming things, it's doing some weird things here. But I'm just going to say, can you make all of the pads the same size, even if it has a sound loaded or not? Make this change in paper. Cool. Um, so I'm going to have it quickly do that side of it. And then it should go through that process. Once we get to a final initial version of this, we're going to then go directly into the building into code portion. Cool. And all right, so it made the change, kind of fixed everything. and went through that. And so this is where we're going to go on this side. Um, Again, this has all been done um, in the design file, not in the code, so nothing has changed here. And we're just going through that process. I think once we're done with this, we're going to move on to the building portion, at least for this portion of it. All right, it's just going to confirm that everything looks great, and then I think we're good to go to that portion next. All right, it's looking at one row specifically to make sure everything is fine. It's double checking. I appreciate that. I appreciate some double checking of the work. Make sure it's the same size, even when zoomed in at 2x. I think we should be pretty much ready to go. And it's making a quick update on the empty pads just to make sure that it looks. I think there might be some changes slightly because of the borders and so forth. All right, sweet. I think we're good on that side. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to delete this again, and I will clear the context on Claude so it doesn't think about it from there. It's going to actually use the design file to actually build this out. I might put, uh, yeah, I'm actually going to put these all in its own little frame so that they're all there. And then I'm going to add in some bottom padding onto it just so that it goes from there. And then, yeah. And I could tweak if I didn't like how I think it did some like margin versus padding. I might actually do some other things on that. So like for example, I could go in here and make some changes. But I'm going to let it be for now so that we can go through this process. All right. So let's go into the coding portion of this. I'm going to go ahead and uh, clear everything. Um, I'm going to, because now I'm getting into the code, I am actually going to say create me a new branch. Create a new branch called feature beat pad. And so this is creating a GitHub branch so that we're going to take that code, create a copy of it, do all the changes in this separate branch, and then we're going to merge those changes in the end. And this repo doesn't have all the nice settings set up for all the no permission, so we'll have to go through some of that as we go through it. So it's now on a new branch. Great. You can see in the code, we're on a new branch specifically there as well. We are going to then say init. We're going to initialize this with the Claude code just so it has some of the like file, like that's a Next.js project and so forth, and go from there. And then once we do that, we are going to now point it at the design file and say, go at it. And let's build it. Let's plan it out, plan out what that feature is going to be, and then we're going to then build it in code and then hopefully play with it and get it working. And we're going to add maybe a couple features, and then we're going to try to get this on the internet. And speaking of on the internet, while we're waiting for this to happen, there's one thing I forgot to do earlier, which was I created the code repo, which is great. I didn't connect it to Vercel. And so I'm going to go ahead and connect that to Vercel. I'm going to create a new Vercel project. I'm going to say my beatpad. I'm going to import it. And then it's going to build that based on what we have. And so now, like, eventually when I merge the code back into the main branch, it's going to automatically deploy it to the internet. So right now it'll deploy the same thing that's here. Um, Not very, very impressive, but it's going to do that for now. And then once we deploy the changes to the code, it will deploy that over there as well. So it's going to build that out and go through that process. All right, let's see where we're at. Do I want to create? Yes, let's go ahead and create that file. And so now it just has an understanding of the project. And so as it writes things, it can go through that. All right. So now we're in the feature branch. We've got the design file. I'm going to go into plan mode, which can be accessed via Shift Tab. And I'm going to point it at this one, this artboard. And I'm going to say, because we cleared the context, it doesn't have any of the knowledge, any of the memory of what we did already in terms of the design iteration. All it has is what's in the design file to look at as context. I'm going to say, take a look at the art board in paper and plan the implementation of it in code. And then I'm going to dictate a couple additional instructions to quickly go through that, and then let it first plan out what it's going to do, and then it will go through the process of implementing the code for that. For this project, based on the design, a user can upload their own sounds into the beat pad. By pressing on the beat pad, it will play the sound. It will trigger that sound to play one time. So the user will first upload a sound, and then that sound will show the state, which the name of the file, and then the user can press that button, and then it will play or trigger that sound. Pressing the trigger again will re-trigger the sound. Pressing a button will re-trigger the sound and stop the original played sound. All right. What else do I need to describe to this? That's it for now. We're probably going to have some additional functionality in here, but I do want to just get that first version working. And that's always my philosophy is get the first version working and then go from there. All right. So do I have everything? And then I'm going to say one additional thing. Please interview me about this implementation. I want it to ask me questions, and I want to really make sure that it's asking me questions to go back and forth about some different trade-offs before it plans it out. So it's first going to examine the design in paper, and then it's going to look at the code base to see what's there, see what it has available, and then it will go through the process of designing a plan or creating a plan to do that. All right, it looks like it's thinking of some questions to ask me, and so we will answer them as soon as it gets it to me, and then we will go from there. All right. Um, yes, I want fixed 8 pads. Empty ones show add sound, so we'll say 1. Sweet. Real waveform or decorative? Do I need the real waveform? No, I don't need the real waveform. It has to be this on Friday too, and I'm going to say no. We just need decorative. Do we want it to persist? Store the audio so that when I refresh the page, it will show the same file there. Why not? Why not? Let's do that. Um, and then it says, like, what do you want to do for like a long press or context menu, click or replace? I actually am going to start with no additional features right now. I'm just going to say just that it plays a sound. We can add those as features and function. I want to make sure that this portion of it works. So I'm going to say no removal. So forth. And I'm going to submit the answers, and now it's going to continue exploring and trying to build out a plan from there. All right, we have 19 minutes left. Do we think we're going to get to a good stopping point in 19 minutes? I think we're going to get somewhere, but we may not get to the all the things I wanted to go through, but I think we're going to get close enough. All right. Um, Fixed per position. Like, all right, it's asking me some more questions in terms of should the colors be assigned to the pads? Should they have the same colors? Yeah, let's control. Actually, let's have fun. Let's like rotate through a palette. Um, I want it to be mobile only centered. So yeah, let's just make that. So versus it could just expand out to the whole screen, and that's going to be a little bit massive. So let's do that. Um, yeah, use the files, the design fonts that we have. So I'm going to have it do that. Um, let's do Wave and MP3 only. Why not? All right. So it's continue to ask me questions, and I think this is the important thing because like you know that I didn't write all the answers to these things in the initial prompt, and I do want it to ask those questions if there's anything that I missed that would be helpful for the implementation, so that it's going through that process as part of the building process and planning process. Um, Again, if this is a larger project, I might have go through a more in-depth process to get all of those things already pre-planned. I don't think you guys wanted me to just sit here and type out a requirements document. Part of this is we want to get to building as quickly as possible, and sometimes the requirements emerge more naturally as you're actually building the process. At least that's my theory these days. And so I think it's better to build, get things, work with it, see what's working, see what's not working, and then adjust based on that. We used to have to wait days, weeks to get that feedback in terms of getting requirements to something built. Now we're doing this in minutes, and so because of that, I think it's just better to just get something built and get something real to that start to work with. All right. Again, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the chat. I'm happy to answer them as we go through. During some of these breaks, there's a good time to answer questions because we're waiting for the agent to do some stuff and go through that planning process. But yeah, we'll get into more building soon. All right, Aaron has a question. Yeah, great question. So Aaron has a question. Instead of creating a new project, say if I have an existing UI design in the code base, how can I load, retrieve it to paper and do modifications in paper? Great question. So what I would generally do is instead of you just starting at just this phase where it's Claude code and paper, by having it connected to the code repository, you can go in and say, hey, look at this code repository and build out X screens or X pages in paper and the design side, as well as can you now also show if you have design system set up, do an artboard with the design system set up. And so that's generally how I've worked with it in that instance. I would actually start by pulling it from the code repository into paper by directing it to a couple pages and then asking it to create a design system in paper based on the code repo. And so it's going to pull in the topography. It's going to pull in any spacing tokens or variables, any colors, and any specific components that you have in there. And it's going to then visually represent that in paper, which is great. And then from there, you can then say, similar to what we did with like use the design inspiration, you can say, ensure you're leveraging the design system in the code and the design system that's set up here to drive any new variations or new designs that you're building out in paper. All right, still writing a plan file, so hopefully we get to that soon. Usually I find that the planning process is the part that takes the longest in this, which is great. I think that's like, one of those good sayings. You plan, you measure whatever twice, cut once. I think there's maybe that's not exactly right, but they get the gist of that, where it's planning it out, it's coming up with something, but then once it has the plan, and if we get to read that, make any tweaks to it, and then we get to then go into building mode. All right, it's updating a plan. It's going to write the plan file. I know that I already missed something in terms of that I wanted to tell it. So I know I have something I'm going to add in here, but it's going to show me this and then go through the process. Let me just quickly skim through it and go through it, and then we're going to kind of go through it. App is retro style toy. Grid. All right, it's going to update the theme inline, update some things in here. It's going to add some things to trigger sounds. And it's going to create some components, pad grid, filled pad, empty pad, waveform bars, some other components, and so forth. It's going to make it at the root, and that's the one thing I want to change. I'm going to make it at another route in the URL path. And then it's going to go through that. These are the colors. Cool. I think that generally works. Again, if this is a more in-depth project that I wasn't on the clock, I would read and tweak a lot more. But I'm just going to make a quick change, which is, can you make this at the beat pad route instead? And let's just do that for now. I might also have it make sure that it's using the right, actually, said, and ensure you are using color tokens in CSS. Because it looks like it might be hard coding some color tokens in there. I don't want it to do that. That's part of this thing. We want to make a design system. We want to create it. I sometimes have actually had it first create a design system and then go through the building process. Sometimes I do go really in depth to make sure that it is building a design system in the code up front, because I think that is extremely important. And so that's just my way to quickly make sure that it's adding some of that in there as part of that. It's going to update that plan. And then we're going to run it and build it, and then go from there. We've got 12 minutes left, so we're just going to build. We're going to build, and we're going to, fingers crossed, it works. And if we need to change things, we're going to change it real quickly. And then we're going to get this version of it online. While it's doing that, I'm just going to have it design a very brief landing page. So I'm going to create another Claude instance, Claude code thing. And I'm going to say, can you design a super simple landing page? And let's say that just says, welcome to my BeatPad, and then a call to action button that goes to the BeatPad actual route. Can you design this in Paper based on the design style that's already in the artboards there? All right. So I'm going to have it go through and design something. We might get this up. We might not. I'll add it in afterwards if we do not get it up, because again, we've got not 11 minutes left. So we're building stuff. It's building out the components first, as it should, and then it's going to wire up all the components to make sure it works. And we're going to go from there. I'm going to basically have it, I think my plan right now is get this working, add one more feature to it to make it a little bit more playable, and then I'm going to get it on the internet. And then after the session, I'll probably add the quick landing page, because I don't think we're going to be able to get to that in the next 10 minutes. But again, while it's doing this process, feel free to ask me any questions. Anything that comes up, let me know. But this is generally how I would kind of like go through the process, get this first version working, adjust things. I already know, because I did this on Friday, that like I'm gonna want to play the beat pad, and I'm going to need more than one finger at a time to do that. And so, me pressing on the button, like unfortunately, the mouse can only press one place at a time, and so that's going to be a hindrance. And so, I'm going to ask it to um, like to map it to the different letters on my keyboard, so that I can play it at the same time. All right, so it's doing some verification stuff here at the end. It looks like it is built, and um, from there. And so what I would see, I found an error, so it's gonna find some stuff in there to fix. It's the waveform bars to make it look decorative, since we're not using real waveform bars. But I can already go. Let's see. What was the route it made? So here's the code. I can go into app. It's beat pad. You can see the green are new pages. The yellow are things that are changed. You can see that code has been changed here. And so we're going to go to that here, which is beat pad. Let's see what it looks like. All right, that's something. That's something. I think it looks better than the first version that we did on Friday. So we got that going for us. Um, it's still trying to fix up some things here that it's finding. I'm going to say don't ask for this again. Keep running. And it's kind of just doing some checks to make sure that everything is working properly, building properly, and so forth. Yeah, it's going to build this now and make sure that it works. And once it does that, it should be ready to go for me to experiment with. Now it's updating the Claude MD file. Great. It's known to update that based on some changes. So while it does that, I'm going to go ahead and try to play some stuff. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go I have this little sound thing. Uh-oh. We have an issue. Let's try another sound just to see what happens. All right, we're getting an issue. Um, all right, we're getting an error here. So we're gonna go and have that. I'm getting an error when I upload a new sound, and it is below. All right. Oh, we're cutting this close. 7 minutes. Let's get this first version working, and go from there. I will probably continue running this a little bit just to if we for some reason we don't get to that first version working. If folks want to stay on, you're welcome to leave. This will be recorded, and we will send out that recording. Um, and so, yep. Um, do. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Let's. All right. All right. Can everyone hear that? That kick drum, and let's hit a snare. I think this should be coming through the Zoom. If someone could put in the comments in the chat that it is, that would be amazing. All right, I see some thumbs up. Amazing. All right, let's do that one thing that I was going to say. But before I do that, good practice, commit the changes that we've made. So I'm going to say, can you commit and push these changes? And Claude is going to be like, sweet, I'm going to commit and push those changes to GitHub, and so that we will make sure that we have these changes, this version, this portion of it, this working version, saved as a commit, and then we will then do a quick change in 5 minutes, and then yeah, I'm just going to push it in that time frame. We can do some of the other stuff later. All right, so I'm gonna again. I like to when I start a new kind of task, I like to clear the context. So just that we're starting in good state. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that. Actually, I'm not going to clear it right now because we have time, and I will use some of the context to be able to do that. All right. One more change that you can make. Can you map the different pads to keys on my keyboard? On the left, from top to bottom, it should go from 5 until B. And then on the right, it should go from 6 until N. And so when I click on or press a 5, it should trigger the sound that is in that top left spot. All right. And the question is, by when will we get the recordings? It will be by the end of the day today. I will send it out. And so, um, yeah, cool. And thank you, Alex, for feedback and that carry on to your next meeting. We're going to try to push as much as we can in the next 4 minutes and see that we can get this version working. And once we do, I'm going to push out. I think on Friday I had a little bit more time, and so I added in like the homepage that kind of goes to this. Um, but for today, I will not do that. But we will get it and get it out there. All right. So you can see this is the mapping and so forth. Cool. It actually already committed and pushed those changes. Let's see what happens. All right. Now I'm pressing the keyboard so I can go. And I can add in another sound, which is a little bit more. All right. I'm not going to do that for too long, but basically that is the thing. And as I realize now, there would be a great feature, which is stop the sounds. I don't want you to play any more sounds. But those are things that you would add in later. I always have this, again, this philosophy that get the core part working. So design it, get that core part working, and then think what other things do you need to add on to then be able to do that? Because I think that always gives a foundation. Like once you use it, like I didn't think I needed just a button to stop all the sounds, but as soon as I started it, I realized that that is a new requirement that I would want to put in there, and so I want to go then into another follow-up action to do that. Um, but because this is all ready to go, it's committed. I'm going to just say make a PR for this. And so that's a pull request. It's going to put that out up on GitHub. It's going to create it. And so that way, once I merge that into the main, it's going to directly put that on the internet. And so the original like version is going to, all right, so it's going to do that. It's going to create it. It's still going to go. So right now we're on the local host, which is on my local server. And then we are going to have it get it. So I have this pull request. Great. Let's open that up. Let's see, make sure Vercel says it's ready to go. And we've added those two things. Added in some test plans to make sure this works. We're going to have to navigate to that in order to make sure we get to this. And I'm just going to go ahead and merge this thing. And Vercel's going to say, let's see what it says. All right, so this one was created 23 minutes ago. Let's go to deployments. It should be saying like it's building something. And once this is built, it will then be on the internet instead. And so it'll be the same thing. If I go to overview, you can see it's mybeatpad.vercel.app. And so if I click on that, it's again this. And then once it gets launched, it will still be that because we didn't change the home page yet. But it will, once it's ready, all right, just ready, I can now go to /beatpad and boom, it's there. And so it should all work like it did. And that is it in terms of getting that. And so I'll just give a quick, in a 1 minute, a little summary here. At this point in time, I would probably, I would go back. I had this thing where I designed a landing page. And I designed it like that. I would probably implement that really quickly. Into that, I would create, because I already merged a PR, I would create a new branch, It'd be a landing page branch. We would then get that in, and then we would then merge that into to the main branch on GitHub. And then from there, it would push things. I would also do some designs to change. If I want to change the sounds, I would ask it for a variation of those changes. I'm going to do that really quickly. Here, if you do need to drop, go ahead and drop. I'm not going to implement it into code, but I would like to show how it would like kind of like continue to iterate on this for just 1 second, so that this is recorded in the video. Like I said, to go through that process. So I'm just going to go ahead and create another version of here, and then I'm going to say Claude, and I'm just going to go and say, can you design a context menu for the pads to that would be triggered by either right-clicking or long pressing on a pad in the v1.1 artboard? Can you make another version of that that has these context menus? The context menu should have replace sound and delete sound or clear sound, and do that design in Paper. And so it will quickly look at that and design that out. It's going to look at the, again, design file. It might look at the code as well, and then it will basically design out another version of that, and then we would then go through that iteration of building that in and so forth. All right. As it's doing that, I'm going to answer any additional questions and then kind of close this out. So one other question from Jeff: how is the design evolved from simple to professional? If Jeff, if you're still here and you want to expand upon that, feel free to jump off of mute and ask the question. I'm not quite sure what specifically you would like me to answer there. I'm happy to answer it more in depth. And if Jeff is not there, totally fine as well. But I think I'll try to answer, how has the design evolved from simple? Design tools and Paper enough to make it look much, much better. Yeah, so I think like the design tools in Paper are pretty comprehensive in terms of the actual capabilities. For anything that you have, like it has all of the design capabilities that you would have in Figma, and any other design tool to make spacing, do shadows and everything like that. It doesn't have the prototyping side, but I think that's the thing, is that like I would actually recommend designing in here and then building the prototype in code, and then make it more interactive through that. And so that's the way that I would go about that. They're still working through and adding in additional features and functionality. One of the things that's really important for a good professional design workflow is components and tokens and things of that side. They are building that out, from my understanding. They have a public roadmap here. And some of the things that they're talking about is like use your code components. It's in progress. Native Tailwind, CSS integration, components with slots, themes, and tokens. All these things are things that they are building out as part of that. And so I think for right now, there's some things missing in terms of that making sure you have the design system in the design canvas. But I think those are things that are coming. Right now, you kind of leverage what's in the code to kind of direct what it's designing in there and so forth. But all right, I'm going to quickly summarize what we built and went through that process. Basically, we created a new code repo. We then went through and connected it up, had Claude Code design in Paper. We had Claude Code plan and code based on those designs. We kept iterating. We did one iteration of adding the little keyboard mappings, and then we merged it and made it live, and it is live on the internet. And so if you want to go and play around with this version, let me copy that and let me put it out here in the chat, and then go from there. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and hopefully you had fun. Hopefully this is enjoyable. Provide any feedback that you have, and have a wonderful rest of your day.